So it has been a long time since I cooked just a straight up pork shoulder or pork butt for pulled pork, especially on this channel. So I'm going to cook one up today, real simple, exactly how I do it for myself, or even if I was doing some catering. We're going to cook it up Texas style, make a sauce, make some slaw, stick it in a sandwich, and it's really, really easy. Let's do it. And as usual, I'm going to keep it really simple with the seasoning. I'm going to go with the hotel pan method, the dump method. I'm going to go in with 2 parts Kirkland brand from Costco black pepper and 1 part Diamond Crystal Kosher salt, 2 to 1-ish. Gonna give that a mix around. Now really at this point, we're just looking to kind of create some seasoning on the outside and help that bark form with all that pepper. But ultimately, we're gonna be seasoning this again once it's pulled. Otherwise, you just end up with a load of unseasoned meat from the inside of the pork shoulder. Set that to the side. And then here we have our 6 kilogram-ish pork shoulder. I picked this up from Tom Hickson of Smithfield. And if you're looking for that kind of American style pork butt, then I definitely recommend checking this out. Oh my God. This is a big boy. What I'm going to do is shake this up a bit. You probably can't see, but it's not particularly square, and it might even be too big to fit in my PK. This trim will go into sausage, just rounding it out a little bit. Square off the other side. And if I was cooking this on my offset or slightly bigger pit, I'd probably just round stuff out. I wouldn't bother trimming it down. It's purely a size thing. And that is a nice pork butt or shoulder. I'm not going to trim off anything. Actually, there's a gland here. I'm going to cut that out. That can go in the bin. It's looking good. Get it seasoned up. So pop that in, make sure we get all the sides covered. This is going to help us get a really nice bark. No need for a binder. This obviously came straight out of the vacuum seal, so it's nice and moist. I find this method just the easiest, cleanest way to do it, especially if you're doing it in bulk. If you're doing like 10 of these, really the easiest way to do it. And that is looking like a well-seasoned pork shoulder. So this can hang out for a little bit while we fire at the PK. So I've just got some old charcoal and a few little wood chunks here that I salvaged from when I cleaned up this PK this morning. I'm just going to dump that in. And then I'm just going to light up some charcoal in this chimney. And almost forgot, this is going to push out some fat, so put a little drip pan. This charcoal was probably about 30% burnt. I'm just going to dump that in. Going to get this pork butt on. I'm just going to bunch it up a little bit just so it's kind of sitting a little bit more even. And then got a little split of oak. And we're going to shut this down, open up the vent over the top of the meat, and that's pretty much it. We're just going to let that cook at around 250 Fahrenheit for probably 7 hours before I even consider doing anything to the pork shoulder. Might have to top up the charcoal, manage some temps with the vents, but really we're just trying to build some colour, some smoke flavour. So let's keep cooking, make up some sauce. So ever since I went to South Carolina and had whole hog, I just can't have regular barbecue sauce on pulled pork. For me, it has to be a vinegar-based sauce. So we're going to make some up today. It's really simple, really easy, probably the easiest sauce that you can make, and you may have seen me do it a couple of weeks ago when I did my whole hog at home video. Let's make some up. I pretty much eyeball this every time, so I'm gonna go with some apple cider vinegar, some ketchup, some honey, some Crystal hot sauce, some crushed chili flakes. Give it a taste. Oh yeah, that's awesome. I've got black pepper. And I saw someone on the UK barbecue forum a while ago refer to Rodney Scott's barbecue sauce as weird. So if you're not familiar with this kind of vinegar sauce and you've never tried it, I would definitely recommend it. It's nice and thin. It dresses pork really, really well, especially pulled pork, and I can't get enough of it. So we're about 4 hours into this pork shoulder cook, and it is looking real good color on there. You can see that dump into the GN pan or hotel pan method. It's a really consistent layer of pepper and salt, good bark formation. Just cooking it around 250, put another split of oak on there, and we'll just keep cooking. Nothing much else to do. So when it comes to pulled pork, I obviously like to have a more tangy vinegar-based sauce. So if I am making up a pulled pork sandwich with coleslaw, I generally want that coleslaw to be on the more creamier, sweeter side. Just so I don't have two acidic things going on. I want the balance between the acidity and the sweetness and the creaminess. So I'm gonna make up a nice creamy coleslaw to top our buns. So I really do like a simple slaw with this type of pulled pork sandwich. Just going to slice this white cabbage up nice and thin. So once that's all cut up, I'm going to go back through and cut it down just so the strands of cabbage aren't too long. Just a rough chop. That should be good. And then for the carrots and slaw, I typically take this little tool that came with an old mandolin, which wasn't very good itself, but this thing was pretty good. So I kept this. It's a really quick way to create julienne carrots. As you can see, perfect for coleslaw. Carrots and cabbage. And now we're going to make up some dressing for our coleslaw. And again, I am going super simple. I'm going to go in first off with some mayonnaise, some mustard, some apple cider vinegar, a good amount of sugar, good old pinch of salt, give it a mix round, taste, touch more sugar, and tiny little bit more apple cider vinegar. Perfect. So you could add in the typical celery seeds, all those types of things that a lot of people do when making coleslaw. Personally, me, for this sandwich, I'm keeping it real simple. Really nothing special, nothing fancy, but it works. And I don't have a recipe for this, honestly. It's gonna be far better if you just make it up, taste it, adjust it. If it's too acidic, add more sugar. You're gonna end up with a product that you enjoy far more if you just make it your own. And because I don't actually have a recipe. See what I mean? Just like shop bought coleslaw. Doesn't have to be fancy all the time. This is about as basic as it gets. That's really good. Put some plastic wraps and cling film over the top of this and this can go into the fridge to hang out. 8 hours into this cook, this pork butt is around 175 Fahrenheit and it is ready to be wrapped. Taking a little longer than I expected, but the fat cap is nice and rendered, pillowy. Fat cap is also split. Everything's feeling nice and soft, nice and dark. So take this inside, wrap it up. Pork butt is looking good, nice and barky. Get this wrapped up nice and tight. Get this back out onto the pit and just cook it until it's tender. Probably a good time for a charcoal top up. So we've got some fresh charcoal on, that should see us through to the end of the cook. Probably bump this up to about 300 Fahrenheit-ish. Pull it off when it's tender. Right at the 9-hour mark, this pork butt is done. It is temping right around 204, 205. But the most important thing is it is nice and tender. Rather than taking this out, letting it rest, pulling it and making some sandwiches, this is gonna go into my warmer overnight. So I'm gonna let it rest inside for probably an hour and a half or so, just to allow it to stop cooking, drop the temperature a little bit, and then it'll go into the warmer at 150-ish overnight. Come back in the morning, make some sandwiches. Take this inside. So it is the next day. This has been resting in my warmer overnight, somewhere around 145, 150, something like that. So let's open it up and see how it looks. Ooh, yeah. That bark is looking really, really good. Oh yeah, that's looking good. This fat has softened up nicely. So it was quite crispy yesterday, but it's been in the warmer all night. So now it's just like pure rendered fat with a nice bark on top of it. We'll just get into it. There we go. That is incredibly juicy. Look at that. That is looking great. Push it to the side and I'm going to pull out anything that is maybe a bit weird, bit fatty, bit gloopy. So anything like that. Anything that's kind of membraney, and just keep all these really nice strands of muscle. Oh, look at that. That is honestly like pork belly. That delicious bark on top just falls apart. It's just so juicy. Take a good amount of this bark with it as well. So I think that this is a good amount to work with right now. I'm sure everyone wants to see the bone removal just to prove that it's tender. There it is. So this big piece here, this big old hunk, can just go to the side for now. And I'm just gonna work on what I think I'm gonna eat this afternoon. Oh, that is good. That is very, very juicy. Good amount of pepper dispersed throughout, an okay amount of salt. So I'm gonna do something that I see a lot of people missing out on, which is once the pork has been pulled, re-salting it. So we seasoned it, of course, but there is a huge amount of unseasoned meat inside this pork butt. So unless you're like wet brining it or dry brining it for a long period of time, there is no way that you can season all of the internal meat. So it's generally a good idea to go back through and just season it up once it's been pulled. Just makes for much more enjoyable pulled pork in my opinion. Touch more. So that is tasting good to me. So you could definitely just serve that up on its own. It would be delicious, but can't forget our vinegar sauce. So I'm gonna pull that over. This is gonna season it even more, bring a nice acidity to the pulled pork. I love this stuff. Give it a taste. That's it. That's the one. Let's make up a little pulled pork sandwich. So we are gonna go on first off with a big old mound of our super barky vinegar sauce dressed pulled pork. And then the coleslaw we made yesterday. Top that off with a little bun. And you've got yourself a perfect little pulled pork sandwich, in my opinion. That is looking very good. I'm looking forward to getting into this. It's been like well over 24 hours. I'm gonna have to be honest, I had to have quite a few bites of this before I decided to stop and describe it. It is really, really, really good. And that was so simple. That vinegar sauce, that Carolina style vinegar sauce with pulled pork, you can't beat it, in my opinion. That slaw, as simple as it was, as unchefy as it was, as basic as it was, just works perfectly when you pair it with acidic pulled pork. The pulled pork itself is really, really smoky. Definitely getting that classic smouldering wood flavour, which I really like. Tastes really different from the offset, tastes really different from direct heat. Salt and pepper rub, get some good smoke on it, get a good bark on it, get it tender, render the fat, add a little acidic sauce to cut through all that rich, fatty meat, some super simple slaw, and you got yourself one of the better barbecue sandwiches there are. Thanks very much for watching, I really appreciate it. Drop a comment below, let me know what you thought. Like, comment, subscribe, all those things. It really, really does help me out. And I'll see you next week for another video.